Hey folks, Jonathan here. Today is Franklin Day. We're going to start taking the engine apart on the Franklin, seeing if we can get it, get the cylinders off, and see what we can do with it. Okay, so we had some people that mentioned about head gaskets, stuff like that. These don't have head gaskets at all. These heads don't bolt onto the cylinders. They're all made one piece. So I pull the cylinder off. It's like an airplane. So there's no way of getting a blown head gasket. So every gasket for this engine basically you can make with no problem. But we'll start getting the manifolds off and we'll go from there. Okay, got the exhaust off of this side. What I decided to do, we'll pack rags in the pipes on these, and then we're going to pressure wash and try to get everything clean. Try to get the cylinders as clean as we can get them before we take everything apart. We've got Scott here has come by and he's pulling some bolts out of the intake manifold on this side, and we're going to try to get everything off here, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll plug these holes off, and that way we can get the pressure washer in there real good. Probably just roll the car out a little bit and see if we can get her cleaned up, because it's definitely packed with grease and dirt, and we've got to get, even after we get these off, we're going to have to get these cylinders cleaned so that airflow will go down through. And they only use this system, I don't think they use it for a year or two. So, most of them I've seen is long ways or bigger fins, different setups, so they changed along the way. So, but I do know that if it's clogged up, it's not going to work right. That's our main objective, is to try to get as much of that gunk out as we can get. Okay, got the manifolds off. Well, I got this one off. Scott got the other one off, and we've got everything taped off. I use that 3M foil tape because it does a real good job.
I thought that was flex tape.
It's flex tape, flex seal, but as seen on TV. So we got the plugs back in it, and I don't have another plug to put in there unless I put a new one in. I don't want to do that, so we'll use this. Hide it there. So I think we're about ready to pressure wash. Get all this gunk out of here. All right. So we've got a lot of it pressure washed. Taking a lot to get it off. It's pretty dirty. But I have figured out that the cylinders are copper jackets around them, so they should clean up good. Of course, block's aluminum, Bellhausen's aluminum, and everything's coming pretty clean. A lot better than it was. Water is running down through. When you spray it, it's coming right down through them cylinders pretty good. So we'll start tearing it down here probably tomorrow and see if we can find some stuck rings and cracked rings and some valve issues and all that good stuff. Alright, okay, so we got by yesterday without much rain at all, but today it rained. Well, it's still raining as we speak. This thing didn't dry off too good because the humidity's so bad, you know, after pressure washing it, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and start tearing it down. Try to at least get a cylinder off so we can see what we're dealing with. And let's see, I'd like to get one of them off that I know wasn't a real high compression. You know, any one of these centers, this front one and the back one was probably the two best, I believe. And so we will go ahead and see what we got to do to pull them. This cover can't come off first. It don't split anywhere, and it's underneath of the intake and the exhaust ports. So it's got to stay on when we lift that off. So we're probably going to take this hood off to get the height up far enough. And but I think first we'll go ahead and remove the valve cover and push rod tubes. Rocker assembly, or rocker box is what you would call it, which is got the pin that runs through it that holds the rocker. So we'll go ahead and take that off, and trying to debate. I'm just debating on which cylinder I really want to do. Of course, we'll mark and make sure they go back in the same spot. But You know, like I said, they all go come apart, but I don't know how much I'm going to get done today. So whatever I do, I'm going to show on video, and we'll see what we can get figured out. All right. Okay, pretty easy. Take the rocker box off. Just take these 2 bolts off, and I'll show you how it comes apart. You got the entire rocker box with your pivot and your rockers. Now, I didn't have to take the center bolt out. I did, but I don't have to. I know now that just clamps down and holds the pin in for your rockers to pivot on. And pretty simple, comes apart, and the push rods are still in it. They stay inside, and then you've got your, I guess these will be your guides, and your lifters. So basically that's it. You can see the lobe of the cam. So the lifter goes in, the guide goes down on, slides in, and then your push rod tube goes above, over it. And I guess that seats it all off. So it's a pretty simple setup. So now we just need to take the 4 bolts. We got a lock bolt, or well, double nutted, so won't ever one. I guess they done that so it didn't back loose. And we'll go ahead and get these off, and should be able to get this cylinder up out by itself. And like I said, I may end up having to pull the hood off. I don't know if it's going to hit it or not, but we'll see. And get it up out of there. All right, we got the 4 nuts, or well, 8 nuts actually, off the bottom of the cylinder. We'll see if we can get it loosened up and pulled off, and hopefully we can get it. And we didn't have to pull the hood. Okay. No stuck rings. And if you remember, I did put oil in a lot of these cylinders and check them, and determined that the valves was the issue. And I got a feeling that's going to be our issue. Is probably pitting in probably the exhaust seats, because that seems to be common on the stuff I tear down. So a little carbon buildup. None of the rings are stuck. You can see the piston's made with some splits in it. They did a lot of weird stuff back then. So don't know. Yeah, the other side split the same. Looks like, well, that's not a brake because of the, I don't think that's a brake in the piston. Let's go to the other side. I don't know if that's a brake in the piston or not. If it is, I don't know how it would have gotten there. It really is not a big issue. If it is, I would run with it as long as it's radiused so it can't crack. Gaskets, as you can see, are broke, so we'll have to make them, but that won't be a problem at all. And I don't know that I would make them, to be honest with you. I think with the the sealers out now, might go without them. Just use sealer. Black RTV. Your main thing is to get it really clean. But so far so good. I'm not seeing anything real bad. We're gonna pull one of these rings off. We'll put in the cylinder and just check a ring-in gap real quick, and maybe we'll try to check the valves out, see what they look like. So now, when I get ready to do the work on these, when it comes to even, well, I might can pull the valves possibly without anything too special, but it's going to take some some work to do the seats and stuff like that. So I may have to make some stuff and, you know, come up with what I need to do it. Because like I said, the cylinder head does not come off of these. So let's get a ring real quick. Just stick it in there and see what kind of ring end gap we've got. Okay. Wiped it down. I measured it. We've got about 3 1/4 bore. Pulled the top ring off, and when I pulled it off, it really kind of, it don't have much spring pressure whatsoever on this ring. I could probably put it back on pretty easy. Yeah, with one hand, as you can see. It's just not much there. But when I go to put it in, it's got a tapered ring gap. It's not straight. Now, you know, that's not important when it comes to a replacement. You know, it can have it either way. But what I want to do is stick it in there and see how much it closes up compared. Not much. So let's see if we got a straight one here. I don't know if all these are angle cut. Remember, the second one is, third one is. This is 4 ring pistons. Yep. Including the oil ring, they're all cut at an angle, so it's going to be hard to check. But we can get a feeler's gauge and check the ring end gap at an angle. We just can't see it really well. It closes up pretty good, but the rings are so weak. I mean, there's just not much spring pressure there whatsoever. I mean, they are closing up. The gap's going to be pretty darn big, so I think we'll do some measuring on these cylinders. And what we'll do is measure them here, you know, about midways and then down, and then we'll turn it and measure them again to make sure there's no egg shaping or anything like that. There's a good long stroke on these things too, so pretty amazing. So, you know, minimum set of rings, which, you know, is doable. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Auto Engine Works, OTTO, I think is what it is. They make cylinder rings up to 86 inches. And when I say 86 inches, I mean 86-inch bore down to, you know, half-inch bore or nearly nothing. And so you can get any rings you want to get, and they're not crazy expensive. I mean, might have to spend a couple $100, but I mean, whatever we got to do to get it together. And what we'll do is I'll do all the measurements, and we'll see what we need to do, whether we need to go a little bit oversized with the rings and foul fit them, and then you know, possibly knurl the bottoms of the pistons a little bit, or to make sure we don't have any piston slap or anything like that. And we'll check the valves. It's probably the next thing we'll do is try to pull these valves out. I think I can probably get it by hand with the springs tension, you know, light like they are. They don't turn a lot of RPMs, so they didn't have a real heavy spring tension like they do in later engines. Another thing too, you know, a lot of people was commenting about the compression. You know, I was surprised this thing was running. I wasn't surprised it was running because of low compression. I was more surprised it running because of the variation of compression, but the fact that 4 of these cylinders was down really low. 75 is fine. 45 was really iffy. The other ones that, you know, 25, 30, whatever they were, I'm surprised they was running on. You know, I had antique tractors for years. I know what, you know, real low compression is. I'm used to it. The kerosene tractors, when you started them up and warmed them up on gasoline and then switched them over to kerosene, you know, most of them tractors was only 3.5 to 1 compression, and it was normal for a 50 psi reading on a gauge. And it was just it varied so much on this engine, and it seemed like number 1 cylinder was the only really good cylinder on here, and that was the cylinder that the only one that wasn't, the spark plug wasn't black on. And so of course we're gonna do something about it, and as you can see so far, it's really not that much to it. It's pretty simple setup, pretty simple to do. No bottom end noises, so we're fine there. Let me show you how this thing oils. Okay. So it's got an oil pump in it, and the oil pump actually pushes up through the oil, and this is going to be a main journal. Main journal will be directly between the cylinders, Here's another main between the cylinders. So I'm assuming this has got 7 mains, which I'm sure it does, being aluminum. But you know, a lot of engines skipped between two. This one would have it every one. But what they've done is you know, you've got this running into the main journal of the bearing. And then there's a hole in the crankshaft that runs from the main journal crossways in the crankshaft to the rod journal. So as that oil goes in, it goes into the crankshaft, travels through the crankshaft through that hole, and then out the rod journal, and that's what oils your rod bearing. And you know, the fact that I started this engine first, you know, to hear it, to know what was going on and everything, that's what kept me from having to tear the whole thing down and rebuild it. A lot of people just want to jump in, tear it all the way apart. I'm not restoring it. You know, I don't restore cars. I fix them. And so that's what we're doing, is we're going to fix this engine and make it run right. And you know, there's no bottom end noises. There was no knocks. We didn't have any issues there. We just want to get this thing to run right. So we just need to get the compression up a little bit and make it a runner. So that's my goal. I'm going to go ahead and mark this cylinder. Well, I'll go ahead and see if I can get the valves out first, but I'm going to mark the cylinder and then we'll get the other ones off too. And pretty easy to do. Not nearly as bad as some cars. And it's kind of nice you could do one at a time if you really needed to. If you had one cylinder that was low on compression, you could fix that particular cylinder without, you know, even have to mess with the other stuff. So, and this is airplane technology, is what it is. So they were known for building airplane engines. So anyway, all right, let me get at it. Here's the intake valve. There's enough corrosion and stuff on it for it to be bypassing leaking some. No doubt about it. Now we'll check out the exhaust. Here's our exhaust valve. As you can see, rough as a cob. So I'm sure we would have major seating issues. If we can get where you can see these seats in it. And these will be the hardest thing to have to deal with, I'm sure. Okay, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but the exhaust seat's going to be on the right and the intake would be on the left. And I'd say it's pitted pretty bad. So we'll definitely have to do some work to the seats and check the guides really well and possibly redo the guides if we need to. Okay folks, after going and getting my glasses and a flashlight and looking down that cylinder, I'm about 100% sure that that's our issue, is them exhaust seats are pitted bad. And that's what happens when something sits for 70 years or however long. And so what we'll do, we're going to get these rest of these cylinders off, and if there's anything that comes up that looks scary or anything, I'll let you know, and if not, we'll get them off and get our holes covered there, and we'll probably end up pulling the pistons off and cleaning them up good, cleaning the ring grooves out, putting the new rings on, and putting these things back together. I'm hoping not to have to knurl them, but if we do, we do. Like I said, the rings that we're going to be putting on it is going to be made probably a little different than these, the way these are stagger cut at an angle. Well, they're not staggered. Staggered would be out, down, and then in, and that would overlap them. These are just cut at an angle. So, and full ring piston, that's what they used to do on, you know, big trucks and stuff. But if I was tractor pulling, instead of the the common 2000s clearance you got on a piston between a piston and a cylinder wall. You know, we would up that to 5000s, and you may get a little piston slap out of it, but you cut down on friction so much. And then I would probably run the oil ring and maybe the 2 top rings, if not just the top ring, to cut down on ring friction. As long as you can keep your compression up, the less amount of friction, less amount of rings, the shorter your pistons. I mean, anything to lose friction is where you gain horsepower. So, but we're not going to tractor pull this engine, so I don't think it matters. So I guess I'll just continue to get the cylinders off and bag and tag everything. All right. Right, number 2 off. No rings stuck. No broken rings. Okay, show you something I didn't even notice there at first, but it didn't take long. Number 2 piston is nothing like number 3 piston. As you can see, we got the split in it, and the sides are made different where it goes on. So it's just an altogether different piston, and which is fine. Don't bother me a bit. I mean, you know, I don't know what the weight wise, it may throw the balance out a little bit if it's a different weighted piston. It's hard to say if somebody just came up with a piston, or if it was a replacement for it, or what, because you know, I was going to say, if I was needing pistons for this thing, you know, I'm not going to be able to go to Advance and get a set of pistons for a Franklin and probably nowhere else, but you know, I could match something up. What you need on pistons, I like to use the Silverlight website, and of course you need a bore, you need a wrist pin size, you need a compression height, which is from the center of the wrist pin to the top of the piston. And if you can figure that, and you can adapt for your bushing for your wrist pin, usually if you get a bigger hole in a piston, it's a lot easier, or if you get a smaller hole, you can bush the center of the rod. I've done both, and you know, just come up with your compression height's your important thing, and your bore, of course, and then everything else, you know, you can pretty much work with and run whatever pistons you want. Now, with this being a small bore like it is, I'm sure there's some 50s model cars out there that ran that bore with a compression height that would, you know, work for what we need, and we could actually get a brand new or new old stock set of pistons. You know, let's say, I'm not going to say for sure, but I mean something like a 36 Dodge or something like that. Or you know, something that would have the right bore anyway. But, and even out of a 4-cylinder, if you know, if you was able to get 6 pistons. But you know, just because it was made to run a particular piston or something don't mean it have to. You have to. I mean, there's a lot of ways around this stuff. You know, we're trying to put it back together and not cost us an arm and a leg. You know, we're not going to pull it down and do some stupid restoration where it's going to cost thousands of dollars to put an engine back together. And when I get it back together, it'll probably run just about as good as it would if they done it, or you know, if somebody put that kind of money in it. But you know, one thing about this engine, you don't have to worry about blowed head gaskets, and you don't have to worry about a radiator, because it's definitely not going to blow a head gasket. But yeah, I'm surprised to see 2 different pistons. Now we'll be able to see what's in all the other ones. Somebody had mentioned on one of the comments something that made a lot of sense to me. They had said that when I quit smoking, I got rid of my reward. I didn't think much about it, but when you get through some, you know, with a project, fabricating something, building something, you know, the first thing you want to do is walk back and look at what you've done and light a cigarette. And it don't matter if it's a little job or a big job. So that was exactly right. That's that's what I done, was cut out my reward system. So, you know, you got to replace it with something else, or, you know, just get through it in your mind, and that's what I'm trying to do. So, all right, let's get this cylinder out. Alright, so it's looking like number 2 is the oddball, and that little cutout on the far side is on all these pistons, so or these 3, so that's definitely not a break on the piston. No ring stuck, but same thing, they feel like they're just weak, and I guess after a while of sitting, you can see coming off that easy, they're just, the spring pressure is gone. Now, let me show you, I want to show you how you get this particular piece, the rocker box and the push rods and push rod tubes out of here. Pull up through, and they come up through the holes here. And slide out around. So it all comes out in one unit here. You can see these are not sealed good. There's no gaskets on them, so when we pressure washed, we got a little water in them, so we got to get that water out. So, anyway, that's how you do it. Saved 1 and 6 for last because of the situation with the panel. I hope I can get one up out of there. We'll see. Okay, I hadn't planned to show a whole lot more because my cord is about out, and I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I'm going to go ahead and get another cord in. I got something I want to show on this piston. Okay, so we got number 1 off. And this is the only one that really had good compression, if anybody remembers. But there's something different about this piston, and something different about the rings on it. As you can see, somebody has put rings on this. It's got straight cut, like we was going to probably have to go back with. But there's also a ring spacer below that top ring. But the piston is actually broke on the other side. Let me see, they've got a single, no, they got, yeah, a single ring there, and I think a single on here. No, yeah, they're singles, but them originals. Somebody has replaced the top ring, and when they replaced it, they put a spacer in because they didn't have a ring wide enough. But on the top, on the other side, we've got a busted piston. And it's kind of funny because this is the cylinder that had the most compression. But as you can see, there's a lot of oil on it too. But it's got a busted spot there, and I can see that we was running with that busted spot. But if you look them rings, even where it's not busted, this thing may have been run a while like that. You can see the taper, and then watch the rings as I lift up and down on them. Yeah, them things have been wearing and running like that for a long time. That's kind of funny. So we know we're going to need 1 piston, and somebody's already replaced piston number 2, so we'll have to find piston number 1 somewhere. So I'm going to get on this back cylinder and see what comes of taking this off. I don't know if my panel is going to drop or what here. That's for, of course, for the cooling. So let's get at it. Okay, folks, to help us out locating the piston, first thing I done was do the measurement on the pin diameter, 7/8. Done the measurement from the edge of the pin to the top of the piston, and then I halved the or divided by 2 on the pin diameter, and then added that to the top, and we come up with a 2 1/4 inch compression height. So from center of pin to top of piston is 2 1/4. So that's one of our main things we need, and then we'll check the bore again. The main thing we're going to be doing, you know, I finally got that other cylinder off. That was a big pain, but anyway. What we're going to be doing mainly is a lot of cleanup and a lot of measuring, and we're going to try to figure out what we've got and make sure that we can come up with everything we need. We'll check out the valve guides, the seats. We're not going to put hardened seats or anything like that in. We'll do the same thing that we've been doing with all these cars, and run a lead additive. So haven't had any issues so far. So I think we'll call it a video and start getting stuff cleaned up and try to figure out exactly what we're going to get ourselves into here. I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I'm going to go ahead and measure the ring widths on the pistons. I'm going to go ahead and measure the diameter of the piston, make sure we got the bore exact, and we'll just go from there. So, all right, appreciate everybody watching, and update on this one, and well, definitely an update on the Roadster here real soon. Oh, I did want to show something else on that. Hold on just a minute. Okay, I want to show you the clock here. I spent a lot of time working on this to get it right and get it the way I wanted it. Took it completely apart, cleaned it, went through it. If you notice, it's got a second hand. I don't think they ever originally had a second hand on them. It does now. Here's what we've done. Actually cut a center hole and made a piece, and did some welding and some fabricating and drilling and bolting, and we put together a clock that runs on a double-A battery, and you know, it can always be changed out if it needs to be. It's not hard to get it apart, and that way we'll have a working clock. And the problem with the clock that was in here was it had so much play in it that everything was wore out. I mean, it just you know, there's no bushings per se and no way of oiling it over the years, so it just completely wore out. So anyway, I've got no adjustment here. Could have put a fake pin in there, but it's not a big deal. Anyway, we got to redo the speedometer too, make it look right. And I am actually considering ordering a GPS speedometer that's a mechanical with a gauge, and taking the parts out of it and putting into the other speedometer. And if I do, maybe I'll do a video on it. All right, appreciate everybody watching, and until next time, bye.